Hello and welcome to VanillaSoft's webinar on how to adapt when insurance sales goes digital. My name is Bergen Wilde. I'm the head of product marketing at VanillaSoft, and I'm really excited to have you here today. About a couple of months ago, I was working with our guest today on this webinar and talking about it. And what's really exciting about this is that it has become extremely topical in that short time. Given the way the world is right now, the way that we have been forced to social distance. We're not engaging each other face to face as much anymore. The idea of using digital technology to keep our businesses going, to keep your insurance sales going, has become much more important and much more topical. So I really hope that you share this webinar, learn from it, get something from it, because I think it's very important right now to learn these lessons from someone who's going through their own digital transformation. So digital transformation, is that something, a term you've heard about? Probably it's been out there for a little while. Are you doing it? Are you confused by it? I know I was for a while. The last company I was at, we went through a digital transformation process. And really, it's not about the technology. Yes, we're going to be using technology, but it's about your sales processes. It's about your business processes. It's about how you're finding new leads, how you're engaging with those new leads, how you're turning those leads into customers, and then how you're delivering value to those customers. And how can you do that more efficiently? How can you remove the pain points that you have that reduce your profitability, slow you down? How can you remove the pain points for your customers so it's easier for them? And I think a perfect example is Uber and how they transform taxis from making a phone call, talking to a dispatcher, the dispatcher trying to find a cab to come get you, you waiting for the cab, not knowing where it is, when it's going to get there, maybe getting frustrated and impatient and calling back. Now with one app, you can call, you can get connected with a driver. You can see where the driver is, when they're going to get there. You can even send a message to them, say, hey, pick me up in a new spot because you're taking a little while. I'm going to grab a coffee across the street. So all of that is kind of a good example of digital transformation. So how then do we translate that kind of thinking in grabbing technology and using that for insurance sales? And right now, again, given the way we're at, it's not a matter of doing this to evolve and slowly get better. It might very well be a matter of survival for a lot of organizations. So this could be very important stuff. So before we begin and before I introduce our guest, I want to go over some of the ground rules and what you're going to be experiencing here today. So the first thing, again, if you are here, and the usual question that everyone always has is this being recorded? Absolutely, it's being recorded. We will send it out to you about 24 hours from now. You should be receiving access to it. And you can access this webinar and all of our webinars on the VanillaSoft.com website. Just go to our resources, and all of our past webinars are there. So if you really want to engage with other insurance sales experts or just sales experts and up your game, there's a lot of great content there. I recommend you go look at some of our previous webinars. Now, the only people that are going to be speaking are me and my guest. You are in listen-only mode. We can't see you. We can't hear you, which is great. So you can kick back. You don't have to worry about someone coming in from behind you. As you can see, I'm also working from home. And hopefully my son doesn't come in and give me a haircut like he did last time. So I've got my COVID crew cut here going on. And you'll see from my photo, it's a little bit different than it was before. We do want to hear from you, though. So even though we are the ones that are doing all the talking, you can talk to us. Use Twitter. Just tag at VanillaSoft in your tweet, or you can use the chat window on the right. Make up a name for yourself if you want to be private. I usually use Milton when I don't want to be Bergen. But please, feel free to connect with us. And maybe one thing you can do, I know when I was in sales before I got into marketing, I would always start my day with a little practice chat. I would call someone I know, or I might even call someone else in the office just to get on the phone and get used to talking and just talk for 5-10 minutes, get my jaw going. So I'm going to ask you, as a way to get your fingers going and get nimble at asking the questions, go in there and tell us where you are. Are you coming to us from your bedroom, or are you coming from the living room, the kitchen, windowless basement, wherever you're coming from, and how where you are. Maybe you're the only person in the office. I don't know. Give that a shot, and tell us where you're coming from. So now let me introduce to you our guest, David Fender. Really excited to have him here. He is the owner of Fender Insurance Agency out of St. Augustine, Florida. I think I said it St. Augustine and not St. Augustine, which is how they say it if you live there. I'm not native, so clearly I made that mistake. But he's on his digital transformation journey right now. He started in January, ironically, at the same time that all of this started to break out of China, and we all are now feeling some of the consequences of that. He began his journey. So we're going to learn from him why he started this journey and how he got there. But a little bit about David. He's been in insurance for 25 years. He began when he was 21 years old as an agent, making phone calls, trying to sell some insurance. Then he got into marketing, and then he became an owner. And eventually he got into a little bit of a side job. He started a business doing something a little bit different. He started helping farmers with migrant worker compensation issues. And he did that for a while until he was contacted by Farmers Insurance and said, hey, we want you to open up an agency for us and help our customers in Florida. So he's been doing that. He got back into insurance. And when he got back into insurance, he had the mindset of someone from 12 years ago and realized that the world had moved on a little bit from when he was selling insurance before and was now trying to adapt. So, David, welcome. Thank you for coming to us and joining and sharing your experiences with everyone here.
Hey, Bergen. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, did I get everything right? Your history about right? That's you've been at insurance again. How long have you been back at it?
So we opened this agency in December of 2018, kind of with what you were talking about with all of the old ways that I had done insurance. And then, so about at the end of the first year was when it started to become clear that needed to do something a little bit different. So as of right now, we're about a year and a half old in the new agency.
Okay, terrific. So before we begin getting into the conversation, I just want to take everybody through what we're going to be talking about, at least some of the themes we're going to cover here today. So first is, what was old insurance? What were you doing that you realized needed to be changed? And then what does that new insurance sales look like? And then kind of why is this change necessary? Again, one of the reasons right now, again, is your outside sales agents are now inside. That's changed. But before that happened, what was it that was driving you? Then what kind of investment did it take from you, your team, from you, financially, structurally, in terms of resources to be able to make this change? What consequences then have you seen in terms of your ability to sell, in terms of your profitability? Has this been a good move, bad move? So far, not quite sure. And how are you sourcing your leads now? And then the last part we're going to wrap up with, again, when we were talking before, you were talking about there were three big key areas that people need to focus on when they do this, and that's their systems, their cadence, and then training, because, again, we are talking about essentially throwing out or dismissing old processes, bringing in new ones, even if they're not fully baked or fully understood, but they need to be understood. People need to agree to them, focus on them, and work them the same, so that if there are issues, you know what they are and you can adjust, because again, these are a little bit up in the air. So that's our flow for the day. That's what we're going to be going through. So enough from me. I'm not the expert here. Let's listen to David. David, can you tell us a little bit more now? Let's get at it. What was the old way you were doing things?
Certainly. So I mean, to think back to, when I started in insurance, young, 21, started to sell. I mean, some of the things that really were kind of foundational back then was we'd get out and meet with, real estate agents, try to crack into that. Always difficult in the beginning. I would remember going and getting shrimp lunches and taking them to new subdivisions where they had real estate agents there. Just to drop them off and get to know them and do anything just to kind of get noticed a little bit. And so it was really the old way was all about developing those relationships with centers of influence we used to talk about, and getting them to send stuff in to you. Used to have a billboard that was up on US One with kind of the information. I remember, yellow page advertising was big. Getting that right size yellow page ad with the right information that kind of had the right message. So we kind of had all of that, the passive marketing that was out there, reinforced with that, active marketing of going and really getting close to, the people that were touching homeowners on a daily basis. Your real estate agents, and doing it in like a newly built subdivision. It would gave us access to a lot of new homeowners that were coming in all about the same time, and doing things that really provided some value to that real estate agent as a thank you and an assistance to them sending stuff to you. So what I remember we used to do was I would create a folder with all of their model sheets for all of the houses that were being built in that area, and create kind of a sample insurance quote for each one of those models. So as people were coming in and looking at potentially having them build or purchase one of the models that they had built, it's one of the natural questions that a homeowner would have for that real estate agent is, how much is the insurance for this, along with the schools and other things, information they would like for that real estate agent to be able to provide. So by me doing that ahead of time and getting that into the real estate agent's hands, the real estate agent would provide more information to their potential buyer, thereby giving more value through what they had, and also help me kind of lock in that referral. So when it came time for the person who was buying the home to get their insurance, they would just pull the sheet out. I had my name, my phone number, and we were able to sell a good amount of business back in the day using techniques like that.
That's clever. I like it, and I like the way of using your network to send in referrals. Right. What though in that? What was that? Sorry, excuse me. What did you find wasn't working as you got back into it and started doing that again and going to subdivisions and talking to real estate agents and bringing them platters of food? What did you? Right. What tipped you off that something was broken?
Yeah. So as we flash forward to now, to getting back into the insurance business last year and starting up some of those old programs. Because we did kind of the same things. I mean, we would do, of course, they would change a little bit. I mean, this time we were doing, bringing in breakfasts for staff meetings at a whole real estate agency where we kind of get to know, and they would give us about 30 minutes to talk with them. The same thing for smaller mortgage companies. Starting to try to develop some of those relationships from scratch, which is always difficult in the beginning. But yeah, there was a number of barriers there that weren't there before. Not the least of which was, construction companies that actually own their own insurance agencies now. So they don't want to send that referral out. A reluctance on some of those centers of influence to refer. Now we're in a little bit more of a world of liability, and so they didn't want to refer to just one person. They would always refer to a minimum of 3. So then the conversation changed from, send me all of your folks. To, well, can I be one of the 3 that you're sending out? All of that dilutes kind of the effectiveness of what we're doing. But, so those are some of the hurdles, that coupled with, I think underneath it, in today's age, the homeowner themselves probably very easily can go out on the internet and start to search for different rates or different ideas or markets beforehand, instead of in the old days. I say the old days. Back in the early 90s, it was, they didn't have that resource. And so they really relied on the real estate agent to provide them with that kind of initial information before they made the purchase decision. Nowadays, you just simply get on Google to get that information.
Sure. So when you started back up again, what kind of, again, you're starting from scratch. So yeah, I don't expect the numbers to be the same, but before you would have gotten X number of leads in a month doing what you were doing. Did you find when you got back in again, given the new landscape, and like as you say, insurance companies already being owned by the property developers and not really wanting to refer to you, what were leads like now when you started back up again compared to what they were before?
Oh, it was drastically different. I mean, it was and when you're starting over, I mean, you expect there to be some change, and in what I now call old marketing. I mean, there's a build up to it. I mean, the first time someone sees an ad or receives a mailer or or starts to interact with you in a passive way or sees your image, it takes a while. You got to kind of build that up. You got to spend advertising for a certain amount of time, and you have to back that up with other types of ways that you're reaching out, maybe some radio, maybe some other old traditional things, and you have to kind of wait for a bit to see what that then generates for you on a flow of business. So it definitely has some lag time there, but we started to notice that it just wasn't coming in. We had very few, people that were flowing in, and so we even started then what we did. We got a big tent and got farmers on it, and started going out to a lot of home and garden shows, and we tried to find at least one, sometimes 2 to 3 events just to get us out into the community with tables and try to engage people while we were there. We got some cornhole games to try to pull people over, and just trying to come up with different ideas, maybe some face painting for the kids, anything to try to engage with people, to get a little bit more of a direct response. But that whole first year is almost anything that we did. I mean, we did get some results from it, but it was a drastically different number than what I had seen previously. So by the end of 2018, it started to become clear that I needed to make some kind of a drastic change, because we weren't going to be able to see the results that I really wanted to see, doing things the old way. Which now, if you say it, it makes a lot more sense, in hindsight. Of course, it's going to be different 12 years later. But then sitting down and trying to come up with, okay, what needs to change, what needs to be different, where we need to go.
Right, and there you go. That's what I was going to ask next. So you recognize that something's broken. You're not getting the leads the same way you were before. What then helps you figure out the new path? Where are you getting those crumbs of information? Where did you search? Who did you talk to? Where did you go to start learning a new way of doing things? What did you invent on your own, even potentially?
Right. Well, I wish I could claim a lot of credit, but really it was just looking around. Here, farmers just came into the state of Florida in 2018, and we have a group of agents that have all kind of started and trained and kind of come up together, and we have a pretty good network. And so that was kind of the first area, is looking around and seeing other agents that kind of all started about the same time that I did, in the same state that I'm in, with access to the same products, and you can see the differences in success that people were having. So my big lucky point was I was appointed to the Agents Advisory Council in Florida, which was very honored to be, and gave me an opportunity to really sit and talk with some of the other agents around the state at a more intimate level, on what they were doing and what success they had seen. And so really it was just forming that kind of old network that we talked about, and sharing ideas with other agents, and kind of seeing, and really going into it with an open mind of, you got to kind of set your ego a little bit aside. Like when I came into this, I knew what I was doing. I considered myself a terrific insurance agent, and I'd been successful in the past, and I would be successful here. But you have to just kind of make that, internal decision that, maybe I don't know the best way to do it, and kind of set that aside, and then kind of go out and talk to people and see what they're doing, and start to gather some information. So, that's what happened here. There were some other agents that were in the state that were doing really, really well, and sat and talked with them about, in general, what they were doing, and they were purchasing their leads off the internet. Something that I had tried a very small sample of in year one, just to try to understand what it was, but did not have a system in place for it. Did not really understand what it was that I was doing with them back then. But here was some examples, multiple examples of people that were having terrific success with it. So I knew then there was something that I just didn't understand. And that kind of started my journey of, okay, I know I need to make a change. Here's someone that's doing very similarly to what I'm doing, but doing it much more successfully. And this is the core of what they're doing. So in January, that started kind of my odyssey, if you will, of just sitting down and, how do I accomplish this? What does it look like in my office? What software will I need? What tools will I need? How much will it cost? Really asking all those questions, because as some, agents will share in, some information, they're not going to give you the whole playbook. You got to really sit down and,
Sure.
Nor should they. because each agency is different. The makeup, the staff, the things. So, having that concept, you've really got to kind of figure out for yourself what works best for you in your agency, and really kind of put all those pieces together. So that was kind of how I recognized what transition needed to be made, and what kind of got me started in January down this path.
Okay. So I want to step back actually at something you mentioned in there that I thought was really interesting. And I know we haven't really gotten to what the new process looks like. But maybe before we get into that, maybe you could, you talked about your ego and that being in the way. What other roadblocks were there for you in adapting to a new way apart from ego? So that'd be obviously a big one. But were there any other blinders maybe, or things you didn't know or couldn't see yet, that you could maybe share that would help people go, okay, check the ego at the door, do that. But also I need to
Right.
look here, or I need to acknowledge this, or this is a possibility that maybe I wouldn't have seen before because I kind of look at the world like this.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, there's some preconceptions there that you've got to challenge. I mean, just speaking personally, before I went through this, I thought of someone that would shop for insurance on the internet. I kind of had this, image of what type of a client that would be, and I kind of pictured a 21-year-old with a Bud Light in one hand and their phone in the other hand as they're driving down the road with their knee, and they're punching in to check what my auto rates were, and I had thought I don't want that type of client necessarily. I want to build my agency with the concept of a renewing book that's a strong book, and I want what we talked about in the independent world as a preferred client base. And so I had that preconceived idea of who shops on the internet. So yeah, I mean, getting the idea that I know what I'm doing and leave that at the door. And then the preconceived notion of who is shopping on the internet, because you hear different ideas and sometimes you just dismiss them. You say, well, that's going after a client that I don't want, without really understanding what type of client, that is. So I think that was one that was difficult. I think one of the other ones is, when you first start looking for new ways to do things, you kind of go to some of the older trusted methods, and I had gone to some sales courses to figure out how to make that change. And, they were sending me kind of down paths that were ways I had done it before and I already knew didn't work. So there was some things out there that were sending me kind of down the wrong way, because it wasn't necessarily, and I don't want to disparage any particular one source, but it was something that's worked for 15 years, so they just keep telling people to do that. And it wasn't, I didn't find it to really be effective any longer.
Okay. So again, as we start to unravel here what this new way looks like, it sounds like from what you just said there too, understanding your persona, especially in this new sales model, is really important. So I would assume that that's maybe one of the first steps is, who am I selling to? What do they look like? Who are they? How do they shop? What's important to them? What kind of work then did you have to do on that to get, again, past that hurdle for one, I suppose? What did you learn, I suppose, about the persona of who was buying from you using web leads as opposed to, again, knocking on doors?
Well, that doesn't really come until, I think I'm still realizing that to some degree. I think it was just the general understanding that, people of all ages and of all insurance buying backgrounds will start their insurance purchasing process online, not just someone that's really young. So I think that, now understanding my own product and where my own product works best, we had to apply that to where we were going. But I think I'm still learning who, as we're watching the analytics as they go by each week, we're learning who the folks are that are coming in by lead, and constantly kind of changing our approach and system to it to adapt to this. Because I think that's probably the biggest lesson early on is nothing stays the same. And even though we may have an idea of where we're heading for right now, that we need to keep our eyes open as we keep moving, because it's going to continually change. And we need to watch it as it does and watch the demographics of the folks that are coming in and what the results are, so we know how to make those changes as they're coming. Because I think that's the one thing that's true about today's world and just about anything that you do, is that change is constant, and that change is coming at a faster pace than what it used to.
Well, interesting you say that, is once we get out of this, and because the economy has changed, and I've seen a lot of stuff about people who are renters, might be a good time for them to be coming buying when we get out of this current crisis. So that could be a lot of change, and again, change your personas a little bit as well. Now, before we get into, we're talking a bit about what I want to go next to is the why is change necessary, and some of the issues around that. But maybe just could we do a quick sort of high level sort of view then of what the new way is? What are you doing now to source your leads, to sell, to engage with your clients? Just give us an overview now what this looks like, and then we'll get back into how you got there.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, just at a very high level, we still do a good bit of the passive marketing, which is, some print advertising, things to just keep ourselves present in the area. But the main focus of what we're doing now is internet, buying leads off of the internet on a daily basis, and reaching out to them to give us a broader territory, a broader reach, and to give us a lot more control over the number of leads that are coming in on a daily basis.
Perfect. So now we've talked about again some of the change and some of the bias, some of the problems you're having before, just not generating enough leads. So now you're buying these leads, and we're on to again, why is change necessary? That's our new sort of topic here. Where did the change start taking place first in your business?
Okay. Well, I mean, just looking at it from a business owner standpoint. So we talked a little bit about, I came in and I noticed things were different, and I knew that I needed to change. But kind of to answer your question about, why is change necessary? I think that being a brand new insurance agency, what we call a scratch agency, and getting to that point of relevance where we've got a book that's large enough to really sustain us. There's a lot of control that's needed over, how much am I spending out, and what's my benefit going to be. And as we were talking about the old marketing a little bit before, and so I could spend, and a lot of that was some educated guessing. I want to get, my print kind of in this area, and I want to get some maybe radio over here, and I want to get this, but it's guesswork at the end. It's educated guesswork, but it's really guesswork. And then you have this long lag time to figure out, what's my true lead benefit? Like, what's my flow coming in from that? And when you're a young insurance agency, or if you're a young business of any kind, having that uncertainty about what your expenditures are versus what effect that has on what your income is going to be, can be dangerous. So I think, just speaking to that question of why is change necessary here, once I understood what this could be, being able to control my exact marketing cost and know exactly what I was getting out of that as a young business, was invaluable. And in today's world, I said, the people are different, our customers are different, the way they're gathering their information is different, but also the costs of being in business are different. The costs of the benefits for our employees are much more expensive. To try to be a startup company and stay afloat in today's world is extremely difficult. So having this type of control over your marketing expense and what you're getting out of it is incredibly beneficial for a small business owner.
Okay. So your customer acquisition costs then through this, have you been able to track that and see a change so far? And again, at least you have better control, but have you noticed then that this has been beneficial for you?
Well, absolutely, because it gives me more of a definitive answer to it. I know exactly how much each lead costs. I know exactly we've got the analytics to know what that converts into as far as revenue, and it gives me day by day control over it. Whereas in the past, we would be spending a large sum of money over time, and then we'd be looking back, 6 months at a time to understand, okay, we got these clients in, this is how they heard about us. It was the old question we'd always ask, and on the top of our quote sheet was always, how did you hear about us? So we could kind of know what was reaching out there. There was a lot of guesswork in that in the old days. And if I wanted to hire new producers, if I wanted to scale up the agency, if I didn't start my increased marketing well in advance of that new producer coming in, then when that new producer came in, all they were doing was taking leads away from my current producer base. Of course, we'd work with them to go out and develop their own leads. But if we were going to support them with leads from the agency, it was very difficult to hire producers. Under this new system, from one day to the next, I can control exactly how many leads are coming in. If I get a producer that's sick, someone that leaves, or I run into this person on the street that I want to bring in, I think they'd be terrific. I can instantly start them, get them trained, get them licensed, and the first day that they're ready to go, I have their day completely full of leads. And having that type of control and that type of immediate response from your marketing dollar is incredibly valuable.
Wow, so in theory, you could scale up as fast as you could basically administer all those different agents.
Absolutely. And that is the true value, I think, of what we're searching for in this change. A change that, as you said, was really precipitated by a change in the consumer. And so it was needed and it was necessary. But it's giving us something incredibly valuable in that we can scale up as large as we're able to staff for.
Terrific. So let's talk now about the investments then. So clearly you're making this change, you're working on new processes, you're learning new things, and that means, again, you are going to need, what does that mean? Does that mean you need a different new training for your staff? Do you need more staff, new staff? How did that change the mix of people that you have? What kind of new software did you need? Did that mean new hardware, software as a service, software in-house? What were some of the consequences in terms of your business investments that need to take place? And then again, maybe some of the structural changes that took place,
Right.
both from an organization and just from a logistics-y, hardware-y, infrastructure.
Right. Well, there definitely was a lot of changes that were needed. Luckily, there wasn't a tremendous amount of upfront financial investment. A good amount of time investment. When I kind of understood where we were headed, just kind of sat down and came up with the image of what I wanted this to look like inside the agency. When a lead came in, what did that look like? How did the producer interact with that lead? How is my producer going to reach out and communicate with these leads? What did I want to happen with the lead after the attempt was done? So I really kind of sat down and kind of designed that in my head, exactly how I wanted it to look. And then reached out to all of the software companies that I could find that provided these either in parts or in whole. And not being really an IT person, I didn't really have the wording as I was calling some of these folks to tell. I could describe how I wanted it to look, but I couldn't tell them exactly the technical terms of how to fit things together. So there was a good bit of time investment in the beginning of just kind of working through the different software companies. And, really that's what brought me to VanillaSoft in the beginning was that, I reached out to them and I know this isn't necessarily a commercial for VanillaSoft, but it's the truth. I reached out to them and from day one, they were like, okay, well, look, we can get something set up right now today and let you start working on it. And then we're going to put you with someone that can understand what it is that you're trying to do. And we'll work with you to get this built. So for someone that didn't really have a huge IT background, that was really nice and helpful in getting that in the beginning. So I think mainly it's not necessarily a very large financial investment. It is something, though, that you have to sit down as the owner or as the manager or as the person in charge of this project and really invest your own time in how you want it to look, how you go about doing it. For us, we got VanillaSoft in, started looking at once we made that decision, and really because VanillaSoft gave us everything we wanted from a software standpoint, all in one package, with being able to handle voice over IP, with texting, with email, with having the dashboard, with having the call routing. all the different stuff that I was looking for. I could do it all in one software system rather than bringing together, 2 or 3 different ones that would, I would then have to train everybody on how to use. So once we got that being the hub of our system, then trying to figure out where we were going to buy these leads from. There's multiple lead vendors that are out there. And that's really probably the largest financial investment in this is once you get everything set up, once everything's ready to go, then getting that how many leads a day you're buying, where you're buying them from, how you're going to track the analytics of it. That was an important piece, one I really wanted to spend some time with, and make sure we were kind of making the right decisions. And as far as an investment on staff, here we kept all the same staff. As I was going through that journey in the beginning, I really communicated with them during that process and just to give them the heads up that, okay, this is a change that's coming. This is what I know of it so far and what I want it to be when we get there. So in part, they could kind of take a little bit of that journey with me in the beginning, and get them kind of prepared for what's coming. And then as we got closer and as we were able to kind of get the software more solidified, the training that I did with them got a little more detailed and a little more urgent. But by the time we got the system up and running and we were ready to go and I was happy with it, the staff was happy, they were excited. And so so far we've dealt with the same staff. We didn't have to change anybody there. It is a transition for them for sure, because they've been used to dealing with something a little bit different. But so far it's been a very positive transition for them.
Right. So just a sort of a last little thing, any major changes to hardware? Did people need new computers, or did you have to buy new office space, or any changes along those lines? Again, it sounds like what you're saying is really the investment's been minimal, other than time.
It really is.
And effort.
It really is minimal. Yeah, the investment's been minimal. There hasn't been any huge contractual obligations anywhere, and we're still in the same space. We've identified space that we want to grow into, because I do have an idea of how we want to scale this up once it's really rolling. So I've got big plans of where we're going to go and where we're going to put all the people that are going to be doing this, as we grow out of this office here. But yeah, no, it's been, as a financial standpoint, it's been very, very minimal. Hardware, it's really, everything's been running on the same systems that we have. We kind of have a rolling technology upgrade policy here at the agency anyway. So we just kept on that same, everyone had 2 screens and we've just kind of kept that same rolling upgrade system in place.
Right. So this is perfect then. So again, you were a startup and then kind of lean, but even if it's lean times, this isn't a overtly taxing on your finances. You don't need to go to the bank for a big loan or to get started. Mm-hmm. So let's talk a bit about that, the finances then. Let's move on to what are the consequences then for you so far? Have you been going through this transition to your sales? How are your sales numbers looking since you've started this? What's your profitability like? So great, you've got more sales, but if it costs you more, are you really coming out ahead?
Well, insurance is kind of a unique beast when it comes to that. So I'm happy to say that last month we set a new sales record. The most sales that we had in a month. So that's
congratulations.
Right. Thank you. This month so far is a little bit down. I think that has a lot more to do just kind of with what's going on in the world. I think people, aren't quite as eager to discuss things on the phone as they were, 3 weeks ago. I think this is kind of taking a toll on everybody. So, I'm not really, we're just going to be patient through this time like everybody else. But the early results were that we had, a sales increase, which was good. From a profitability standpoint, a little less profitable that month. But insurance is always going to be less profitable in year one. Our profitability, the things that we really are looking for is we're modeling year 2 and out. We want, if at least for my model, and I know different insurance agents have different views on this, but if I can break even in year 1, I'm very happy. In year 2 and on is really where the profit comes. So, and how does that how does that work with what I'm doing here? Is that if I can remain break even on year one, but do it on a much larger group of clients, then year two, our profitability is exponentially higher.
Great. Okay, good. So things are looking good for you going into
Yes,
2020,
very happy with
2021.
the early. Yeah, very, very happy with the early returns, and I said it. We're still in this process. I'm not sure it's ever going to be a process that's completely done. But we've got everything transitioned. We are hiring. We have a new salesperson
Wow,
that's
perfect.
starting on May the 4th, and more behind them. So I think we've gotten everything in place, and now we're going to start with the scaling that we're talking about.
Perfect. So let's go back in a little bit because now again you are doing things differently. You talked about where your leads now come from, and you're buying leads. So again, you can have as many leads as you need, or you can scale back. So your investment is sort of appropriate to your staffing level. Where are you getting your leads from? Like, what does that really mean? What do you mean by you're buying leads? What are they? Where do they come from? What can you tell us about these leads?
Okay. So there's a specific company that we're buying leads from now, the first one, looking at a couple other companies, but kind of in general, what this looks like is anyone goes out to the internet and searches, auto insurance quotes. These lead companies, what they'll do is they'll capture those folks and take them to a web page that says, if you would like to fill out a little bit of information, we've got all these different insurance companies that they'll show them at the bottom. We'll send this information out and we'll try to get a bunch of quotes for you. So it's really about capturing that consumer when they're sitting down and they're thinking about their insurance. Because if you think about this, we talk about this all the time in our training with new producers. If I'm just sitting down with someone and we're just talking out in public and it comes up that I'm an insurance agent, and it's always a very easy thing. They say, what, maybe I could quote your auto insurance for you, or they'll ask me, because it doesn't cost anything for us to quote, maybe just a little bit of time. But when the consumer's in the mindset of, okay, here's something I need to get taken care of, quoting for them is something that's very easily done. But when they're not in that mindset and we're coming at them and asking them, would now be a good time to quote your home or your auto insurance? They don't want to kind of deal with that right now. So this process is about, someone goes to the internet and says, okay, I need to look at my insurance. And then they'll go to these sites and they'll fill this information out. And the moment they hit submit, that becomes a lead for us. So our software here has the ability. So we purchased that lead. We've got it set up ahead of time. Whereas that lead becomes a lead for that particular company. Within 5 seconds, that lead is sent electronically over to us, and then pops up on our producer screen as here's someone. It would give us a lot of information. This is their name, just the information that they filled out while they were on that screen of their name, their address, where they're from, what type of insurance they're looking for. If it was auto insurance, what type of vehicles that they have. If it's homeowners insurance, maybe some other information they wanted to share about what year the home was built. A lot of information that we'll need. So when the producer then calls and says, hi, we've been assigned to help you finish this insurance lead that you started online for your 2018 Buick LeSabre. We're like, oh, okay, yeah, no, I just completed that, and I'm still sitting here thinking about it. So yeah, thank you so much for calling me. It's about getting in touch with that consumer in that time frame that they are thinking about their insurance, and it's a much easier discussion to have at that point. If you wait 60 seconds beyond that, your ability to connect with them becomes much, much less. So that's kind of the general concept behind it, is buying the leads from these lead vendors that are out there, and that'll capture that, and having a system and a technology in place to where the consumer, you're able to reach back to that consumer while they're in that mindset of dealing with their insurance.
Right. Okay. So
Did I answer your
speed
question?
is the biggest thing of your new
Speed,
system is
yeah,
about speed.
it's right.
So
Yeah, being
let's
there
talk
for the
then a little
consumer
bit.
when the consumer wants to talk about it.
Right. Which exactly. So you got to get them when they're in the mindset for it, which means you've got
Right.
to respond quickly. So let's talk then a bit about the sort of the systems, the cadence, the training. When we talked about this before, you said these are the big things that really we need to hammer home to make this whole new process work. So let's talk again about the systems. Well, how do you get this there to your reps quickly? Like, what are you, and then go through with how do you build this out and all of the
Sure, yeah.
the sort of the top things that people need to know as they start this journey to be effective.
Right. Yeah. And I think we mentioned earlier that, I did purchase some of these internet leads in my first year, but these were the things, the systems and cadence and technology. These are the things that I didn't understand back then. And it's probably, the most important point. So, our system, as we were just talking about, is the internet lead gets purchased and the lead vendor wants to send you the lead. Back in the old days, last year, they would just email it to me. So then I would get the email, and maybe I'd be on a phone call and finish up my phone call, and then I would pull up the internet lead from my email system, and then I would reach out to them. And if you think about it, what we were just talking about, maybe that took 5 minutes, maybe that took 20 minutes, depending on the time of my phone call that it was on, or how long it took me to see that email. Well, that consumer is now 20 minutes later. So 20 minutes ago, they were sitting down and thinking about their insurance, but right now they're not. They're doing something else. Maybe they've gone up, they've left, they've done something else. So, right. Yeah. I mean, life happens, right? And life happens in pretty fast increments nowadays. So having the system in place would be, having that lead vendor ready, setting up a way for us, it's what they call it, I'm learning, a JSON packet of information that comes across. VanillaSoft is able to accept that information in real time, and then in cloud format as our producers are logged into their data screen, having that data pop up, having that system there. We've got in VanillaSoft, we've got our voice over IP phone lines that are connected in. We've got texting that's in there. We've got emails that are in there. We've set up templates for each one. So it's all right there at the producer's fingertips. So as that lead comes in, they've got 3 different methods of communication to reach out to. The first thing they do is try to call. If they don't answer the phone, then the next thing that goes out is a text and an email, because not everybody's really comfortable nowadays answering the phone. And if it's someone they don't recognize, they won't pick it up. But maybe they'll answer a text or maybe they'll answer an email. So it's about having different methods of communication. So having just the software system, as we talked about, having a system set up, and this is where that time investment that we were talking about earlier comes into play for the business owner or the manager, or for me, is just sitting down and thinking about, okay, so this leads come in, how do I want my producer to do that? And working with the team at VanillaSoft and getting those systems set up, it didn't take that long once you think it through. So we have different email templates according to what's going on. We have different texting templates according to what's going on. Setting up I don't know how detailed you want me to necessarily get, Bergen, yet, but setting up what we call result codes is, okay, I've just called this person and this is what happened. And then I have a system in place that says, okay, if it was a no answer, then the computer knows that call will be put on hold for 2 hours. And then that same producer will get that call back in 2 hours to try them one more time. At the same time, the system will text that person and with the name of the producer that's trying to reach out to them, and says, in a very friendly way, hi, whatever the name is of the lead, I'm, whatever the name is of the producer, we're just trying to reach out to you to finish up this insurance that you were starting. Also at the same time, a very nice email goes out, and then we give them a couple hours, and then that's what we call our cadence. We have a cadence set up to where we're going to keep on a systematic way attempting to communicate with this person who at some point in the very near past was interested in trying to get some information on their insurance.
Okay,
and in the very beginning,
then too.
Oh yeah, sorry.
No, I just didn't mean to interrupt there. I thought you were coming down to a pause, but I'm interested about the cadence you just mentioned. So you're doing these couple things at a time. How persistent are you? How long do you keep that going? What is the cadence thing? Because that was, again, one of your key points: systems, cadence, training.
Right. Yes. Yeah, so having all the systems in place to be able to reach out to them is important, and having all that stuff set up. And then the cadence is really kind of almost the magic of it, where and that you just set that up. It's really just kind of testing what your own personal preference is on how, I've talked to some agents that are doing this with their cadences. They're going to reach out to a client 4 times in the first day. They're going to do 2 times the next day and then beyond. We're not quite so aggressive in the beginning. We do 1 call and then one other call 2 hours later. Then we do another call the next day. Right now, we're set up. We have a 7-step cadence that takes place over 60 days right now. And we're watching to see what sales are made at which step of the cadence. And then we'll be, continually adjusting. Is it best to call only 1 time in day 2? Maybe we should call twice in day 2. If they don't answer in those few days, right now we're waiting a couple of days before we call the next time. And all those things you got to kind of watch as you're going through and kind of constantly adjust your cadence. But right now we have 7 steps in our cadence, and with the different methods of communication, we'll be reaching out to that person a total of 12 times over 3 different methods of communication inside 60 days to attempt to contact that person and see if we can quote their insurance. And the cadence is so important because, although we are doing our best in the very beginning to reach back out to that person instantly when they're sitting in that moment, not everyone's ready. Maybe they were searching while they were on their break at work, or maybe they were at work and they were doing it on their phone. We're not really sure. And they're just, although they were looking, they're not in a position where they can really talk about it right now. But for me, the goal is, to make the metrics work, and some of the stuff that we can control now is I want to be able to reach at least half of the people that come in by leads, right? So I know when I buy a lead, half of them I'll never be able to reach. But our goal is to set up a system and a cadence to where I can at least talk to and provide a quote for half of them. If I can do that, then the system is working. And then you carry that on through. Of those that I am quoting, how many of them are we converting into sales? And of those sales, what's our average premium and how many policies per household? All part of the analytics that we now have in our hands to be able to control, to understand what a marketing dollar spent in a day now converts to in income for us. And that's the beauty of the type of control that we have right now.
Great. So last thing then to touch on a little bit was training. And again, I think you mentioned something really important at the beginning. When you were talking about exploring the change and building your vision, you were sharing that with your employees from the very beginning and bringing them along so that it wasn't, hey, shock, cold water, we're doing all of these things differently, which I think is brilliant. But what else do we need to know about training?
I think, and again, I'm still somewhat early in this process. I mean, we started it, so I love sharing kind of my ideas and thoughts and struggles and challenges. Hopefully, it helps someone out there. But I definitely am not an expert by it yet. But what I'm seeing is that it did help bringing them in early because it is a change. It's getting so many people to talk to all at once. And each producer kind of deals with that a little bit differently. So none of my staff had previous phone work before. When we're hiring now, we're kind of looking for that. So we can see how someone that has previous phone job experience, how different that it is. But what we found here is that the tendency of the producers were to kind of speed up a little bit and to not connect quite so much at a human level with the people that we're talking to. So there's kind of just this natural change that happens when they're thinking about, okay, I'm in a call center now, rather than I'm picking up a desk phone, putting it on my shoulder, and talking to someone that I know's down the street over there. A natural human emotion is to be a little more connected. Like, oh yeah, no, we shop at the same Publix, and and our kids go to the same school. It's much easier. You get that human. Whereas now we're calling it a statewide basis. I've got a little headset on. There's just something that happens. So I think training with them, working with them, being patient with them, acknowledging these different topics and struggles, and that you do want to kind of move quickly, but once you do get someone on the phone, that's the moment you're looking for. Slow down.
Right.
and talk with them, connect with them, work on educating them a little bit about insurance. Do you know what limits, what bodily injury liability is? So, did you choose those limits, or did your last agent just give some to you? So just really connecting with them and getting them to recognize that need to slow down a little bit was very important. And you want to get the buy-in of your sales staff. That was why I started talking with them about it very early, because I was nervous about that fact. That this is something completely new. I used to hear them talk about putting a phone in your ear, and it being somewhat negative. So I needed their buy-in a little bit, and so I think that was really important. So those were, I think the three biggest things if you're considering this type of a change, is just getting your systems in place, which for an old non-IT guy, I was able to do it, and so anybody can. Setting up a cadence, and there's a lot of resources out there to help you come up with, and it's not about trying to be perfect with your cadence from the start. That's not what it's about. It's about picking a cadence that you're comfortable with, and then watching it and measuring it and then changing it over time to get your results to be a little bit better, and then just getting the training and binding your staff. Those are the three most important things.
Awesome. Well, David, thank you so much for joining us for today, sharing what you've been going through for the last 4 months, your transition. Hopefully this is really helpful to those that have joined us either today live or on the recordings. We really do hope that there's some value in this. I think there is. It gets me excited to see someone making changes to really help their business, especially in a time when change is necessary. So, David, thank you very much. Can you tell us, how do we reach out to you if we want to ask you another question outside of this webinar? What's the best way to reach you?
You can email me anytime. If you put my email address up there, dfender@farmersagent.com, and I'll be more than happy to respond. And thank you, Bergen, for having me on. It's been a blast. Sometimes it's always nice as you're going through some big change to kind of sit and think about what you've done and communicating. And I think going through this process has helped me a little bit as well. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Folks, again, this was recorded. You will have access to this in about 24 hours. Again, all of our webinars are available on the website of VanillaSoft.com. Thank you very much for being here, and we'll see you next time.